On June 9th, 1984, Martina Navratilova won the French Open, and in doing so, she became the holder of all 4 Grand Slam titles at the same time. 4 majors, held at once. The International Tennis Federation handed her a check for $1 million. Its president stood up and called it a Grand Slam. And then tennis spent the next 40 years deciding it didn't count. The record books today list Navratilova with 18 major titles and move on. They do not put her name on the short list of players who won the Grand Slam: Budge, Connolly, Laver, Court, Graf. Even though, for one stretch in the middle of the 1980s, she did something none of them ever did. This is that story. Start with how good she actually was, because the size of the achievement is the size of what got argued away. By 1983, Martina Navratilova was not just winning, she was erasing the field. That year she went 86 wins and 1 loss across an entire season, the best single-season record any professional, man or woman, had posted since the Open era began in 1968. Not the best that year, the best, period. She did not slow down in 1984. She put together a winning streak of 74 straight matches on every surface the sport had: clay, grass, hard court, and indoors. It is still, 4 decades later, one of the longest winning streaks in the history of professional tennis. She would finish her career with 18 Grand Slam singles titles and 167 singles titles overall, more tournament wins than any player of any gender in the history of the Open era. That number, 167, has never been touched. This was the most dominant stretch the women's game had ever seen, and in the middle of it, she did the thing the sport reserves its highest word for. Starting at Wimbledon in 1983, Martina Navratilova won 6 Grand Slam tournaments in a row: Wimbledon 1983, the US Open 1983, the Australian Open at the end of 1983, the French Open in 1984, Wimbledon again, the US Open again. 6 majors back to back to back against everyone the sport could put in front of her. The 4th one in that row, the 1984 French Open, was the one that mattered because winning it meant she now held all 4 major championships at the same moment in time. That is the Grand Slam: 4 trophies, 1 set of hands. Here is where the administration enters the story, and for once it enters on the player's side. 2 years earlier, in 1982, the International Tennis Federation, ITF, had changed the definition of the Grand Slam. For decades, the slam had meant one thing: win all 4 majors inside a single calendar year, January to December. Don Budge did it in 1938, Maureen Connolly in 1953, Rod Laver in 1962, and again in 1969, Margaret Court in 1970. 5 times in the history of the sport, and that was it. By the early 1980s, the Federation had basically given up on anyone ever doing it again. The game had gotten too deep, the travel too brutal, the 4 surfaces too different. So in 1982, the ITF rewrote the rule. From now on, you did not have to win the 4 in 1 calendar year. You had to hold all 4 at once, 4 in a row, in any order. And to sweeten it, the Federation put up a bonus, $1 million to any player who pulled it off. Navratilova pulled it off. At Roland Garros in June 1984, she completed the 4 in a row, and the International Tennis Federation paid the $1 million bonus. Its president, Philippe Chatrier, the most powerful administrator in the sport, declared it officially: Martina Navratilova had won the Grand Slam. If you've watched this channel before, that name should stop you. Philippe Chatrier is the same Federation president who, a decade earlier, used his power at Roland Garros to lock Chris Evert and Jimmy Connors out of the French Open entirely. The same man who took French Opens away from the best clay player alive is the man who stood up and tried to hand Martina Navratilova the biggest prize in the game. Hold that thought, because it's the key to the whole story. Now, I want to be honest about the wording here because this is exactly where it gets argued, and the honest version is more interesting than the clean one. The institution did not rob Martina Navratilova. That's the part people get wrong when they tell this fast. The ITF changed the rule, the ITF paid the bonus, and the ITF president personally called it a Grand Slam. On paper, by the actual governing rule in force in 1984, she won the slam cleanly and was recognized for it. The asterisk didn't come from the rulebook, it came from everyone else. The traditionalists were, in the words of one account, apoplectic. Their position was simple: that is not the Grand Slam. The Grand Slam is what Budge and Connolly and Laver and Court did 4 in 1 calendar year. No shortcuts, no rule changes invented to make it reachable. Holding all 4 across 2 different years, they said, was a magnificent achievement and a different achievement. And here is the detail that settles which side history took. Martina Navratilova, in her heart, agreed with them. She knew that to be spoken of in the same breath as those 5 names, she would have to do it the old way. In 1 year. No asterisk. So she went and tried. This is the part the record books skip, and it is the cruelest stretch of the whole thing. After the French Open, Navratilova kept winning. Wimbledon, 1984. The US Open, 1984. By the time the calendar reached its final tournament, the Australian Open, played that era in December, she had won the year's first 3 majors outright in 1984 and needed only Melbourne to complete the real thing. The calendar year Grand Slam. The version nobody could argue with, the one that would have ended the debate forever and carved her name next to Laver and Court. She did not make the final. In the semifinals on December 6, 1984, she ran into a 19-year-old named Helena Sukova, and in one of the sport's quiet ironies, Sukova was, like Navratilova herself, from Czechoslovakia. Sukova won the first set she dropped along the way, lost the second, and in the third set, she did what 74 straight opponents had failed to do. She beat Martina Navratilova 1-6, 6-3, 7-5. It was not a surrender. In the final game, Navratilova saved 5 match points, 5 times the calendar, Grand Slam was 1 ball from gone, and 5 times she hit a winner to stay alive. On the 6th, her return missed. The 74-match streak was over. The calendar slam was over. And the only version of the achievement that the traditionalists would ever have accepted died on a single missed return in a Melbourne semifinal to a teenager from her own country. She had held all 4 titles at once. She had been paid $1 million and declared a Grand Slam champion by the president of the sport. And the one thing that would have made it unarguable slipped through her hands by 1 point. So what did it cost her? Not money, not titles, it cost her a place on a list. Open the record of the Grand Slam, the Calendar Slam, the Holy One, and you find 5 names across the entire history of the modern sport: Budge, Connolly, Laver, Court, and then, 4 years after Martina's near miss, Steffi Graf, who completed the Calendar Slam in 1988 and, for good measure, won Olympic gold the same year. Graf's 1988 became the last word, the clean one, the one everybody points to. Navratilova's name is not on that list. The player who won 6 majors in a row, who held all 4 at the same time, who went 86 wins and 1 loss in a season, who won 74 straight matches, and who finished with more titles than any human being who has ever played the game, is filed under a footnote. The Martina Slam, people call it when they call it anything, with the smile that says, not the real one. As of 2026, Martina Navratilova is 69 years old and still the most accomplished tournament winner in the history of professional tennis by a margin no active player is close to. She has nothing left to prove and she knows it. But the record books, when they tell the story of the Grand Slam, still skip the woman who held all 4 trophies at once. Because for 11 days in December of 1984, a 19-year-old saved tennis the trouble of having to count it. The Federation tried to give her the slam. History took it back on a technicality, and the technicality was never written down in any rulebook. It lived only in the difference between what the sport's president said and what the sport agreed to remember. Now you know what the record books left out. If this is the kind of buried case you come here for, the records that got argued away, the bans and the decisions the Open era made when the cameras weren't watching, then subscribe. A new forensic tennis documentary posts every week. Tell me in the comments, holding all 4 majors at the same time, is that a Grand Slam, or does it have to be within 1 calendar year? The Chris Evert story, the 3 French Opens the same federation president locked her out of, is sitting on the end